July heat continues across central Oregon. Fires also continue to spread, and that smoke is just blanketing our Tri-County area and really all of the high desert. And here through the next couple of days, we do not get much in the way of changes to this weather pattern. Hey everyone, I'm Darrell Winninger, the Chief Meteorologist at Central Oregon Daily News. And across the high desert today, it was smoky. We heated again, and by tomorrow, it's going to be even hotter. But let's go ahead and talk about this fire threat, because for Friday, we have critical fire weather conditions just coming into Central Oregon, and this doesn't even much include what's already burning. If any fires start, they're likely to spread rapidly. So we're going to be talking about a series of red flag warnings, even more weather alerts, especially when it comes to air quality alerts, and more changes that are going to be happening through the next couple of days. Let's kick it off with what it looks like right here and right now. This is a view across Central Oregon from the Cascades, looking at Hoodoo and Bachelor cameras all the way through our Tri-County area. And the last one actually is Prineville Reservoir and then Pine Mountain. Most of these cameras show a whole lot of smoke. And look at, you can even see with the Bachelor cam, the one right behind where my camera is, you can see Tumalo Mountain. And on the back side of that, just a layer of smoke on top of that. Clear conditions up toward Hoodoo, looking south. No, that's looking to the north from Hoodoo. In fact, north-northwest, we do not see much in the way of smoke until you get all the way to the right side of that camera. And that is because that's the eastern side, closer to Central Oregon. So let's look at a few other cameras. These ones are all courtesy of the Oregon Hazards Lab. And each one of them shows something different. Number one, the Hinkle Butte camera. There is some fire retardant that you could actually see on the camera lens, but also looking just past that, you can see smoke coming up from the surface. That's because of the Ikawa Butte fire. And the Shaniko camera, the Hampton Butte camera, the Klein Buttes camera, all showing dense smoke. Even when we look at traffic cameras, those road cameras courtesy of ODOT, we do see some smoke off in the distance in a couple of the cameras, but not as bad in some parts of Central Oregon. Sisters doesn't look too bad. Madras, it looks a little hazy there. Prineville looks a little hazy there, but even in Bend and Lapine, not as bad as it was even earlier this morning. That doesn't mean we're in the clear. That just means there was some improvement. And what happens is in the morning, the atmosphere is compacted. And that's because temperatures cool. Just like during the winter after a cold front and it gets really cold, you have to add a little bit of air to your tires, or as it's warming up, you get a little overinflated. The vertical column over the air mass over Central Oregon does the same thing. And so as temperatures heat up, the vertical column expands a little bit more. That allows smoke to thin out just a little bit. The smoke is still there. It just has more room. The particulates have more room to move around. Also, it's getting blown around as well. But tonight, temperatures come back into a mild and then cool range. That atmosphere compresses and that smoke settles closer to the surface. Right now, about half of Central Oregon has these hourly averages of unhealthy or unhealthy for sensitive groups. The other third per se or so has moderate air quality. Some of the real-time sensors from East Space Labs actually show good to moderate air quality around Sisters, around Lapine, around Crescent. So we're going to take this one step further, and we're actually going to look at one more. Right now you're looking at two different air quality monitoring networks. We have one more, and that is the Purple Air Quality Monitor Network. Let's go ahead and look at that one. Takes a little bit to pull it up. So the difference is that when we're looking at eSpace and, okay, so the DEQ is just an hourly average. eSpace is a 15-minute to 30-minute average, but the Purple Air one, that's every 10 minutes. And the Purple Air one is actually showing a little bit more when it comes to poor air quality. Now, the eSpace Labs sensors show unhealthy air quality around Bend, getting up into Redmond, but it really shows that it's getting bad over Crook County when we look at the eSpace Labs. In fact, it looks like one sensor just south of the Box Springs fire is actually at hazardous air quality, and that's right by that 26 marker, that US 26 marker. Outside of that, I'm mostly seeing reds, I'm seeing oranges. It looks like in Redmond, there's one that's purple or very unhealthy, but for the most part, even in Bend, from the west side of Bend going to the east side of Bend, we have everything from orange or unhealthy for sensitive groups all the way to unhealthy. So this is something we're continuing to track, but even the Purple Air Network shows that in Sisters, we mostly have good to moderate air quality, getting down to Sun River, Three Rivers, Lapine, mostly good to moderate air quality, but there is still a good chunk of the high desert that has poor air quality. And by tonight, that's going to get even worse. And here's why. We do have smoke coming from several different fires, and I'm going to move around a little bit, then I'm going to reset this graphic and we're going to set it into motion, okay? So first off, when it comes to the Akawa Butte fire, that smoke is coming down to the 126 corridor overhead. Tonight, that's going to be settling. Now, the fire continues to spread. In the evacuation zones, the level ones are even on the south and west side of the Highway 20, the US 20 corridor, and to the south of the 126 corridor. But when it comes to the hot spots on this, they continue to encroach a little bit further past that line. When it comes to the Brewer fire, as of this morning, we did not see much in the way of development on this, and that's because of the torrential downpours that came with a couple of the thunderstorms that pushed through the area. Now, lightning bad, heavy rain not so bad, didn't put the fire out, but it did slow it down. It looks like the densest smoke is coming off of the Box Spring fire, which is this one right here, and the Roe Creek complex, which is this really big one, the biggest fire footprint in all of Oregon. And so that smoke is coming south off of those two fires. And there's one more that I've been tracking, the Coyote fire right here. I think that's a Coyote fire. That one is not as bad. It hasn't spread much at all. But the Henry fire south of Paulina, that continues to spread even more as well. So we do have a lot going on with this, and we are going to go ahead and get to the smoke forecast model. Sorry, I messed up a little bit. Okay, so there we go. So the smoke forecast model. Right now, most of that smoke is over central Oregon and eastern Oregon. Tonight, this smoke is going to continue to spread out even more. By 11 p.m., most of it over Crook County, starting to get those tapering winds. That smoke's starting to spread out, and by tomorrow, we're looking at poor, quite possibly not even just unhealthy, but hazardous air quality is going to be possible again tomorrow morning for our sisters, Prineville, Redmond, really all of central Oregon. Then through the day tomorrow, we have good news, bad news. Good news is it looks like some of the winds might help to clear the air a little bit. Bad news is winds are going to be coming west to east by Saturday or by Friday afternoon and then Saturday at noon, and that could actually spread or exacerbate the spread of these fires, if you will. And so we have a couple things that we're tracking. Number one, there is an air quality alert until further notice for all of the Tri-County area and eastern Oregon, really everywhere that's downwind of these fires. And you can still see all of those perimeters, all those complexes. In fact, the Roe Creek fire, I mentioned that was the biggest complex so far in the state. Just to the north of that one, there's the Hay Creek complex as well, and that's actually encroaching into parts of Wasco County from Sherman and Gilliam County. So that's something we're tracking as well. But on top of all that, tomorrow through Friday and Saturday, there is a series of red flag warnings that stretches across almost 2/3 of the entire state. And that's because of the stronger winds with already dry conditions and even those fires that we haven't noticed yet. Because remember, when it comes to thunderstorm activity during these critically dry conditions like we had yesterday, sometimes fires start in the wilderness, don't even get noticed until a couple of days later. That is especially true when you have a situation in an environment set up like we have today, where there are cameras. The cameras that have the AI helping to spot those smoke plumes are really being blinded because of the low visibility due to the smoke that's already in the air. So it's something that I wouldn't say I'm worried about, but it's something I'm tracking pretty closely. Today, the closest thunderstorm activity was over eastern Oregon, getting into Idaho, and this we haven't heard of any fires starting from that, but some of those cells were even strong enough to prompt the National Weather Service to issue a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings for just a little bit. We're talking winds in excess of 58 miles per hour, and I think a couple of them had hail cores that supported hail that was as big as or bigger than 1 inch in diameter. And so those are wrapping up over there, but for us, outside of the smoke, it's just clear across most of the state outside of where those thunderstorms were, and that's what the forecast had. We had scattered thunderstorms across the high desert yesterday, and then by today, that's when most of it was going to be over eastern Oregon getting into Idaho. Right now, we're tracking a couple of different things. First, there is a area of low pressure that's just offshore. That's not really going to make landfall. It doesn't even have much moisture associated with it. This is the tail end of the remnants of that subtropical cyclone that was formerly known as Elida. And that's just going to fizzle out over the Pacific Ocean. Looking further at the big picture, there's a broad ridge of high pressure out over the northern Pacific getting into the Gulf of Alaska. That's pushing all of this activity further over into Canada. Not even going to bother us. So the next several days, we'll be sitting under high pressure. We'll continue to have tons of sunshine, and we will continue to get even more of the smoke because under high pressure, subsidence pretty much pushes the atmosphere down. And with that, the smoke is going to be pushed a little closer to the surface. So once high pressure reestablishes itself over central Oregon and the Pacific Northwest tomorrow, that's just going to make for smoky conditions. In fact, let me go back. Let's look at this. This was fascinating. I just hit play and I saw this. Did not see this earlier, but I'm not surprised by it. So what you're looking at right now has cloud cover. It has precipitation, all from a high resolution forecast model, but it also has visibility from a high resolution forecast model. And that visibility is actually picking up on the smoke plumes coming from the Roe Creek fire, the Roe Creek complex, and the Box Springs fire, as well as a couple of other ones. And so it's showing that smoke being spread out. So this isn't the smoke forecast model. This is just the visibility. Typically, I only use this for fog related conditions, but it's actually picking up on the smoke. Meanwhile, outside of the smoke, not much is happening. We have tons of sunshine. I say sunshine, that just means not much in the way of cloud cover, and we have hotter day tomorrow. So let's talk about that. When it comes to relative humidity, right now we're pretty dry, not critically dry. Tomorrow, that's when we get critically dry. Now there are a couple spots such as Pine Mountain and Paulina and Maury Mountains. Those spots are critically dry, and that's the kind of numbers that we're expecting across the rest of high desert through the day tomorrow and this weekend. And on top of that, our high temperatures during the last 24 hours, 90s and some 80s. It got up to 90 in Bend, Redmond, Madras, and Prineville, 95 in Paulina, and 97 in Warm Springs, 80s for some of our higher elevations. Current temperatures, 80s with some 90s. That represents everywhere between a 5-degree dip in temperatures to a 20-degree bump in temperatures in the last 24 hours. Now, that's partly due to the fact that we had some thunderstorms rolling through the high desert tomorrow. You get that rain-cooled action, and you get a dip in temperatures just during the same day. And so today, this afternoon, we actually have the hotter temperatures around because this is when we were experiencing the thunderstorms this time yesterday. Now, tonight it gets mild. We're back through the 60s into the 50s. Tomorrow, we are bringing the heat. Today, we're mostly on either side of 90 degrees. Tomorrow, we're well into the 90s with more smoke. Now, more smoke and few clouds are expected, but we're still have very high UV intensity forecasts. I don't suspect that a lot of people are going to have trouble with this because you're not probably going to want to spend a lot of time outside anyways because of that smoke. There's just something to keep in mind. Now, no precipitation is in sight through this weekend. We'll get a little bit deeper of a look at that in just a little bit. But tomorrow, we bring in the heat. By Saturday, a weak system rolls through. It's actually parts of that low pressure system, Elida, the remnants of Elida, actually dissipate over the Pacific Northwest. Doesn't bring much in the way of cloud cover, but what it does bring is a slight dip in temperatures, knocking us back down to where we should be for this time of the year. So still mid to upper 80s, still some 90s expected, and that's not until this weekend and next week. So right now, here is the remnants of that post-tropical cyclone, Elida, and here's what you can expect. The next couple of days, this is actually showing similar conditions to that high-resolution model. It doesn't have the smoke plumes dancing around, but what it does show is that we are just looking at very few clouds and not much in the way of moisture. By Sunday, that post-tropical system, the remnants of it start to roll in. It actually gets absorbed by an incoming cold front, but that cold front is just going to go right around central Oregon because of that high pressure that's building into the region. So no precipitation in sight. Even our long-range forecast model shows everything pretty much just fizzling out before it gets here because of that high pressure. Not much in the way of cloud cover, nothing in the way of precipitation. Going all the way through Wednesday of next week, nada in the way of precipitation. So let's talk about those totals. Nothing between now and Sunday. That's a high-resolution model. The one that's not as a high-resolution model shows, you guessed it, nothing in the way of precipitation. Now, when it comes to wind gusts right now, actual gusts are between 15 and 25 miles per hour. Actual winds are more like 10 to 20 miles per hour. Some parts of the high desert, 5 to 15 miles per hour. What you can expect is through the next couple of hours, it's breezy. It's gusty at times. By tomorrow, breezy at times. Notice it's a longer period that we're going to be in that 5 to 15 mile per hour range. During that time frame between 2 p.m. and 9 p.m., gusts as high as 25 to 30 miles per hour. Same thing happens on Saturday. So for tonight, expect 50s with a few 60s and 40s out there and smoke. By Friday, 90s, few triple digits and smoke. That you're catching on the theme here, right? Smoke is going to be an issue until fires, as long as fires continue to burn, I should say. And so there is a red flag warning Friday and Saturday. Smoke is going to be in the air. Winds are going to be breezy at times. Even early next week, still breezy at times. And if I had to speculate and if I had to really push this out, man, that smoke is really going to be an issue through this weekend and into next week. Typically, we don't push it past the 48-hour window because we don't know how fire crews are going to do. They could wrap it all up. They could. It's possible. But I really think the smoke is going to be sticking around until early next week. Not to say anything bad about the fire crews. They are doing an outstanding job keeping life and property safe, as well as establishing some evacuation zones as they increase, or evacuation centers as they increase evacuation zones. They are doing a fantastic job. There's just a really big job ahead of them. Now, when it comes to weather headlines for this Thursday, July 23rd, fires and smoke, man, that's the weather story. Heating actually peaks Friday, then we get our dip in temperatures, but there's no rain inside, and breezy days lie ahead. Now, when it comes to satellite and radar, there's not much to talk about till you get over to eastern Oregon and Idaho. That is the latest in weather. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News. We'll have the latest headlines and your most reliable forecasts. See you then.